Saw is filled with traps that seem impossible, but some are so easy, even you could beat them. In fact, there's one trap that you'd have to try to fail, and by the end, I'll show you which one. But first, let's start with one that seems brutal but actually has a secret. Fatal 5 Trial. The Fatal 5 Trial from Saw V places 5 victims in multiple connected bomb-filled rooms where cooperation and communication solve every challenge collectively. The entire series is designed for all participants to win if united, making it philosophically aligned with Jigsaw's redemption themes. The escape requires victims to share resources, solve puzzles cooperatively, and sacrifice together rather than competing selfishly. Each room's challenge becomes trivial when approached as a team problem instead of individual survival. The bomb timers provide adequate time for discussion and collaborative problem solving if victims communicate immediately. The trap's failure in the film stems from selfishness and distrust rather than impossible physical demands. Groups that recognize the cooperative design from the beginning can navigate all rooms successfully with minimal casualties. Group coordination trumps individual suffering in the franchise's most philosophically sound trap, but newer traps show even simpler individual challenges. Glass Grinder Trap. The Glass Grinder Trap from Spiral requires blocking flying glass shards with a nearby trash can as a shield, then buying time to escape before the mechanism completes its cycle. The escape involves immediately grabbing the trash can to shield against the initial glass barrage, then using the protection to buy seconds for finding an exit or disabling the trap. The mechanism's speed creates urgency, but the solution requires noticing environmental tools rather than enduring direct harm. Saving a partner adds complexity but remains achievable with quick thinking. The trap rewards environmental awareness and decisive action over physical endurance. You panicked on this, you'd be fucked, not gonna lie. But as long as you don't go crazy, you're chilling. Speed-based challenges favor decisive action, but some traps favor examining mechanics thoroughly. Shotgun Collar Trap. The Shotgun Collar Trap from Saw 3 features a collar that explodes if Jigsaw dies, but the exposed hammers and visible mechanics allow victims with medical knowledge to disarm it by blocking the firing mechanism. In my opinion, it's easily beatable for anyone who explores the device's vulnerabilities rather than giving up. The escape requires keeping Jigsaw alive as intended, or alternatively using objects to block the exposed hammers that trigger the shotgun shells. The trap's external mechanics provide clear points of intervention, unlike fully sealed devices. But Lynn's eventual death occurs because Jeff kills Jigsaw impulsively, not because the collar was unbeatable. The device's vulnerabilities mean survival depends more on Jigsaw's health and cooperation from others than the victim's own abilities. R.I.P. Lynn. Okay, these traps have exploits, but here's where it gets interesting. Some of Jigsaw's traps don't even require you to do anything. In fact, one trap on this list, the best strategy is literally just standing there. I'll show you which one in a minute, but first, Pig That Trap. The escape requires Jeff to identify which lever controls the incinerator, then burn his deceased son's possessions to halt the flow of rotting pig remains.
It is also the key that will bring you closer to the man accountable for taking your child.
The action takes seconds physically, but demands letting go of grief and sentimental attachments that have consumed him. No pain tolerance or physical sacrifice is needed beyond emotional acceptance. Jeff's hesitation in the film nearly kills his own child because he cannot release his attachment to dead son's belongings. The trap proves that psychological barriers often exceed physical ones, as simple tasks become impossible when weighted with emotional significance. Emotional tests can be physically simple while psychologically devastating, but preparation makes other traps manageable. Needle Pit Trap. The Needle Pit Trap requires searching through 20,000 plus syringes for a key, but victims can wrap hands and clothes for protection to minimize needle injuries significantly. Methodical searches easily succeed when protection reduces the injury and infection risks.
It will be like finding a needle in a haystack.
All you need to do is get everyone's clothing items, wrap your arms and feet, then get lowered in there. Easy peasy, but instead Amanda is yeeted into the pit, resulting in severe pain and a much higher chance of death. Environmental traps reward observation and using surroundings creatively, but some traps are literally impossible to fail. Riggs Trial. Riggs Trial consists of 90-minute tests designed to save other victims, but the optimal strategy involves doing absolutely nothing and waiting out the timer. The escape requires resisting the urge to rush in and instead waiting for the full 90-minute timer to expire naturally, allowing other mechanisms to resolve on their own. Intervening triggers deadly consequences, while patience leads to successful outcomes for all parties involved. The psychological challenge of watching others suffer without helping proves harder than any physical torture. The trap exploits Riggs' savior complex and inability to trust others, making inaction the correct choice. See? That's the trap where you just wait. But now we're entering territory where things get weird, because the next few traps are not testing your pain tolerance or your smarts. They're testing whether you can do basic math wrath and not panic. And one of them is so unfair, you'll get angry just hearing about it. Pound of flesh trap. The pound of flesh trap requires 2 victims to cut flesh from their bodies and place it on scales, with the person contributing more weight surviving while the loser receives temple screws. Firstly, we just need to understand how unfair it is that this skinny girl is competing against Peter Griffin. This guy has at least 5x the flesh to cut off. Insane.
Who will offer the most flesh in order to save their life? The choice is yours.
Now, the escape method involves calculating the minimum flesh required to tip the scales in your favor, then using the generous deposit holes to add small objects or make strategic shallow cuts rather than amputating entire limbs. Victims can literally win by removing skin or fat deposits rather than major body parts, like your butt cheeks or thighs. Or for the fat guy, he could chop off that fat stomach and come out the saw trap looking like a healthier man. The competition aspect adds psychological pressure, but physical requirements remain manageable. Simone's arm amputation in the film represents dramatic overkill, as smaller deposits would have sufficed against her fat opponent. The trap rewards strategic thinking over blind panic, making it beatable through simple arithmetic and controlled sacrifice. Math-based traps can be straightforward when the numbers work in victims' favor, but cooperation makes things even simpler. Sealing jars trap. The sealing jars trap from Saw V pulls a group of victims towards saws with chains, while keys to their freedom hang in glass jars above them. All keys are identical, meaning one person can grab a key and share it with the entire group to unlock everyone's chains together. The escape requires victims to realize the keys fit multiple locks, so one person retrieves a key and passes it around to unlock all chains before the saws reach anyone. The design rewards immediate sharing and punishes selfish hoarding, making the trap incredibly easy for groups that communicate quickly. Initial panic might hide this obvious solution, but chains limit movement enough that victims have time to experiment. The trap fails completely if even one victim thinks cooperatively and tests whether keys work for everyone. The mechanism provides generous time limits and identical locks that scream, "Share the solution" to anyone paying attention. Communication-based traps reward early cooperation. Mausoleum trap. The mausoleum trap chains 2 victims together by the neck with one blindfolded and the other muted through sewn lips, requiring them to communicate and guide each other to a key before a winch pulls them together. Ripping the mouth stitches to enable communication makes the trap entirely solvable through early teamwork. The escape requires the blind victim to rip open the stitches on the other victim's mouth despite the pain, enabling verbal communication about the key's location. Once both victims can coordinate, the seeing partner guides the blind one to retrieve the key and unlock their shared chain. The stitches tear relatively easily compared to the alternative of being crushed together by the winch mechanism. Art's eventual solution in the film involves killing his partner Trevor with a hammer to reach the key, but this extreme measure was not necessary, let's be honest. But group traps consistently prove easier than solo ones because cooperation multiplies survival chances. Hair trap. The hair trap catches a victim's hair in machinery gears and requires them to cut the hair free, using nearby sharp objects or assistance from another player. Hair cuts easily, and the solution requires no bodily harm beyond a bad haircut. What the actual helly? Just cut your hair, girl. The time limit provides ample opportunity to grab tools and slice through the tangled strands. The escape method involves someone else finding nearby glass shards, blades, or scissors and cutting away the trapped hair close to the scalp. Alternatively, the person not in the machine could just smash the machinery, or surely he could shoot through her hair and it'd rip. The trap's beatability comes from requiring zero pain tolerance and offering obvious tools for the solution. Victims lose hair, but keep their lives with minimal effort beyond overcoming vanity about their appearance. Razor box trap. The razor box trap places an antidote inside a glass box with razor-lined holes for arms. It's obvious for anyone who inspects their surroundings calmly rather than immediately reaching through the razors. The correct escape requires victims to just squeeze both hands in, with one grabbing the antidote and one holding the saw openings open. But that doesn't happen. Addison puts each of her hands in a hole and panics when they get trapped. The razors trap her arms inside, leading to fatal blood loss from a completely avoidable situation. Some traps hide their solutions in plain sight, punishing victims who overthink simple problems. Alright, we've seen traps with obvious solutions, but you know the craziest part? The easiest trap on this entire list doesn't even require you to hurt yourself. Not your body, not your fingers, nothing. It's so simple. It barely qualifies as a trap, and I'm about to reveal it. Reverse bear trap. The reverse bear trap from the original Saw features a jaw-ripping helmet with the key hidden inside a nearby body's stomach, requiring victims to cut open the corpse quickly or tamper with exposed gears and wiring to disable the device.
There is only one key to open the device. It's in the stomach of your dead cellmate.
Quick action or mechanical interference makes escape achievable without self-harm. The intended escape involves searching the sedated man's body rapidly and cutting into his stomach to retrieve the key before the timer expires. However, the trap's exposed gears and tamperable wiring provide alternative solutions where victims can jam the mechanism or cut power to the device. The trap's beatability stems from generous timer length and visible mechanical exploits that clever victims can manipulate. Even the intended solution requires no self-mutilation, only the willingness to perform emergency surgery on another person. This shit is so easy, man. Come on. But even traps requiring body mutilation can be surprisingly beatable with the right mindset. Shotgun trap. The shotgun trap from Jigsaw presents a loaded shotgun as a key to escape, with the solution revealed through simple observation after Jigsaw's hint. The trap requires victims to inspect the weapon without pulling the trigger, revealing that the key is hidden in the shotgun itself, and firing the gun at the user would be fatal. The escape method involves heeding Jigsaw's recorded hint that the key is in the shotgun, then carefully inspecting the weapon without panicking. Examining the barrel or internal components reveals the actual key's location, allowing victims to unlock their restraints and leave safely. Alternatively, victims can use the bullet to shoot out locks or disable the trap mechanism without aiming at themselves. The trap succeeds only if victims act impulsively and fire the weapon without thinking, making it more of an intelligence test than a physical ordeal. Misdirection fools hasty victims, while trust in Jigsaw's cryptic words rewards those who pause to analyze. Speaking of obvious solutions, the shotgun trap literally tells you exactly what to do if you just listen. Bucket trap. The bucket trap from Jigsaw locks metal buckets on two victims' heads and chains them to a wall with buzzsaws slowly pulling them forward. The trap's design makes it impossible to lose if the victims simply stay composed, as the buckets protect their heads from the saws and only a prick of blood on their finger is needed to activate the release mechanism. Fans describe it as unlosable. The escape requires victims to avoid thrashing and lightly graze a finger or arm on one of the saws for minimal blood to trigger the sensors. Once blood is detected, the mechanism releases both victims automatically with no major sacrifice required. The entire trap punishes panic rather than testing physical endurance or pain tolerance. The buckets completely protect vital areas, making death nearly impossible unless victims actively try to harm themselves through violent movement. The design flaw is so obvious that fans call it a prank-level trap, but the bucket trap looks complicated compared to a trap where you just need to act quickly. Eye vacuum trap. The eye vacuum trap places a victim in a device that sucks their eyeballs out unless they break all 5 fingers on one hand by turning a dial within 60 seconds. The trap is designed to punish greed, testing whether they value their sight or their manual dexterity more. The escape method requires gripping the dial firmly and twisting it quickly to position 5 fingers in one motion, then snapping them by continuing the rotation. The mechanism allows a single twist exploit where all fingers break simultaneously rather than one at a time. Victims endure severe pain but avoid permanent blindness, and the broken fingers are healable injuries compared to losing eyes completely. Since breaking fingers is probably just a temporary problem and the task is so easy, this trap is the easiest on the list. If you enjoyed this video and want to see saw traps you have zero chance surviving, click now.